The ball is in the court of the Massachusetts legislature debating whether or not to legalize recreational use of marijuana. Such use is already legal in 4 states, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and Colorado. And as WGBH's Stephanie Leydon tells us, one group of lawmakers is pushing for Massachusetts to be next on the list.
Technically, Glenn Prescott is breaking the law. But even if police catch him, he'd only face a fine. Possessing less than an ounce of pot is a civil violation, but buying it is still a crime.
If the cops pull up, you're dealing drugs. They consider that drugs. So you get arrested, then you get a record and stuff like that. So I'm scared when I go to get it sometimes.
Now, legislation pending at the State House would make buying and selling marijuana legal.
If this law passes, what changes? Do we see, marijuana shops on the corner?
Quite possibly.
Andy Gauss is with Bay State Repeal, which advocates legalizing marijuana. He says the current bill is flawed because it includes heavy taxes and fees that will feed a continued demand for pot sold on the streets. Case in point, Colorado, where you can grow, sell, and buy marijuana legally, but where just last week, Denver police raided 2 unlicensed marijuana growers.
One thing that we really want is to bring the black market above ground. And that's the one thing that we haven't really done in Colorado. And that means that taxes must not be excessive.
Do you think the legislation will pass?
No, in fact, I don't think it will pass.
It's been voters, not lawmakers, who have eased the restrictions on marijuana in Massachusetts, passing ballot questions that first decriminalized the drug, then made it available to medical patients. Now, with few expecting passage of the legislation, there is already an effort underway to put a question on the 2016 ballot that would ask Massachusetts voters to legalize marijuana.
I think the voters have been deceived.
Jody Hensley is with Smart Approaches to Marijuana, founded by former Rhode Island Congressman Patrick Kennedy. Sam opposes marijuana legalization.
When perception of risk or harm or consequence goes down, then use goes up. The tweets we're picking up from 15-year-old boys in the high school that they are forwarding is cigarettes harm and marijuana heals.
Hensley says with legalization comes commercialization. This ad was on the side of a Denver marijuana store.
It's exactly what they did with Joe Camel, marketing tobacco to kids. The point is it's an addictive drug, just like tobacco.
Glenn Prescott says he's been smoking pot since the 6th grade, and legal or not, he has no plans to quit. Stephanie Leydon, WGBH News.
So joining me now, our state representative David Rogers, Democrat from Cambridge, is co-sponsoring the bill that would legalize recreational use of marijuana. Deputy Chief John Carmichael of Walpole, who opposed the bill. Gentlemen, it's good to see you both. Let me start with you, Representative. Proponents of legalization, as you just heard, are talking about putting the question on the ballot in November of 2016. Why not let the people decide a controversial issue like this?
Well, because, Jim, if we do that, then a relatively narrow interest group, the people writing the ballot question, get to decide a complex piece of public policy. Whereas in the legislature, you can have debate, you can have expert testimony, you can have amendments, opponents can weigh in, proponents. So
why should we do this?
Well, I think what we can't do is conflate or combine 2 things, and that is whether marijuana is good and then the legal and regulatory framework it should be under. In other words, the government doesn't say go out and drink, go out and smoke cigarettes. It says we can't control this underground market, so we think the more sensible way is to put safeguards in place, regulate, and get tax
So it's like an individual rights kind of thing. Is that where you're going?
Yeah.
So, Deputy Chief, where's he wrong?
Well, we regulate pharmaceuticals right now, and we're we're currently in the middle of an opiate epidemic. And we have to look at what's going on in Colorado, and it's way too early. They just passed it in 2012, so it's way too early for Massachusetts to be moving in this direction, I think, at all.
When you mention Colorado, though, one thing we do know is they raised anywhere from 50 to 70 million bucks, a lot of which is going to school, prevention programs. Wouldn't you like some of that money since people are smoking marijuana anyway, just illegally? Well, unless it's unannounced. What?
The unintended consequences with that, especially on our adolescents, the social costs far outweigh the revenue that they're bringing in.
But his bill wouldn't allow adolescents to smoke any more than adolescents are allowed to drink alcohol. I know they do, but the law would say you're under 21, I assume, same rules as alcohol, no?
Largely.
Right. But the law's not going to be able to protect the children from that. The diversion that takes place out in Colorado right now is significant. It's getting into the hands of the kids, and there's no bill, there's no law that we can write that we can keep marijuana from getting into the hands of the kids.
Well, even the current law that makes it illegal, I mean, it's decriminalized, but it's still not, it's not obviously legalized. They're still smoking though. So why not bring it out into the open, make it safer, regulate it, raise money that you can use, prevention programs, drug safety programs? Wouldn't that make more sense than sort of being in denial? I'm sure you're not, about what the fact people in Walpole, kids in Walpole are smoking, right?
Yeah, right. And then what we're seeing in Walpole is that as Jody mentioned a few minutes ago there, the perception of harm is going down. The use rates for our kids are going up. The onset when kids are actually starting to use marijuana is we have higher levels of kids using it at younger ages, and that's a problem.
You know, if I may, Representative, the legislature didn't have it in them to do what the people did by almost 2 to 1. In fact, we can put these numbers up. In 2008, decriminalized under an ounce, almost
Sure.
2 to 1. 2012, almost 2 to 1, or roughly 2 to 1. Medicinal use of marijuana. Legislature didn't have the courage to deal with that. Why do you assume on a far tougher, bolder issue, outright legalization, your colleagues are going to have the courage to follow your lead?
Well, there's no way to predict what's going to happen with the legislation, but what I want to foster, and others who are sponsoring the legislation, is a robust public debate so that we can have, again, expert testimony, look at the data, the statistics, and to your earlier question, NIDA, the National Institutes on Drug Abuse, has done polling for decades, 40, 50 years. I mean, we've seen the data. Young people, older people use marijuana regardless. I mean, Starbucks, why do people line up? Caffeine. Gambling, why do people gamble? There is something in human beings where they go and do these things. And so the question is not whether or not we're going to see marijuana use. We see it. It's going to happen regardless. The question is, should we legalize it, regulate it? And there's an argument that by taking it from the underground economy, we can actually make it more safe.
Well, one of the things we took from an underground economy was medicinal marijuana. You're actually on a commission that oversees the implementation of this. It's been 2.5 years. We can't even implement that, a far narrower thing, competently. It's been a disaster. So why do you assume if we can't do that, the state government, we can do what you're advocating, which is outright legalization, and do it in a credible, safe kind of way?
Sure. It's a fair question. I think there are always going to be glitches and challenges in rolling out and implementing any program. And clearly, it could have been done better. We know that.
Well, couldn't have been done worse, I think. Isn't that not a fair way to describe it?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, there have been problems.
Okay, I will ask the question that you've heard 10,000 times, so you can shake your head at me. My attitude is to be intellectually consistent. If you don't want marijuana legalized, then you have to advocate the prohibition of alcohol use. Because everything I've read through the years, Deputy Chief, suggests that the use of alcohol by not just underage kids, but by adults as well, is far more dangerous in every way than smoking a joint is. So do you support not letting people drink alcohol either legally?
No, but alcohol is more of a culturally accepted, it's a social thing that we do in our culture. Marijuana is used to get high. People use alcohol as a social thing. You know, and there are unintended consequences. People do get intoxicated.
But would you agree that even if you're right about the cultural difference, which I think is a function of the fact that one's currently illegal and one isn't, wouldn't you agree that the consequences of alcohol consumption are far more dire in your world than the consequences of marijuana use?
No, they're the same. And if you look again, if we look back at what's going on in Colorado, their traffic fatalities have decreased over the years. With medical marijuana and when decriminalization, their fatal crashes have increased 114%.
That's not what I read today. I also read that violent crime went down in the first year of its implementation in Denver.
No, fatal car crashes in Colorado have increased significantly, and the reason why is for impaired driving. Yes, they do test for how much nanograms are in the person's blood when there's a fatal crash.
Worse to drive drunk or to drive under the influence of marijuana?
It's the same.
You believe it's the same?
I don't think, if a family member is killed in a fatal car crash, I don't think the family is worried or concerned of which substance it was.
But the question is, which is more likely to have you die in a car crash? You think they're the same?
They're the same, yes.
30 seconds. Are they?
30 seconds, are they what?
Is the impact of marijuana on your ability to drive and do other things responsibility the same as the deputy chief suggests it is under alcohol?
Well, I would say this.
Quickly,
The ramifications of alcohol abuse with drunk driving accidents, domestic violence, stabbing, shootings, all sorts of violence, there is no way marijuana even approaches the kind of havoc that not only alcohol, but tobacco wreak on our society.
We have to hold it there. Representative, thank you so much.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it. Deputy
Yeah.
Chief, good to meet you. Thank you
you.
so much for your time.